Ever feel like you're trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle?
Yeah.
But some of the pieces are just like different shapes. You're not alone.
Right.
Today, we're tackling a puzzle many parents face: raising boys with ADHD. We're diving deep into Raising Boys with ADHD: Secrets for Parenting Healthy, Happy Sons by Mary Anne Richey and James W. Forgan.
Okay.
Our goal is to equip you with actionable insights, not just summaries,
Right.
so you can walk away with practical tools for this journey.
Yeah. What's fascinating is how the book reframes ADHD. It's not about a child being defiant or lazy.
Right.
It's a neurological difference, like having a brain wired for a different operating system.
So it's like trying to run a Mac program on a PC.
Yeah.
It's not going to work, right? You actually brought a visual. This is cool. What is it?
I always think visuals help, so I printed out this diagram from the book. It compares treating ADHD without a proper diagnosis, to get this, building a house without blueprints, or going to war without a strategy.
Oh, wow.
You might get by for a while, but it will be messy, more costly in the long run.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Right.
But let's say you already suspect ADHD. Why bother with the official diagnosis?
3 big reasons the book highlights. First, a diagnosis unlocks a treasure chest of support.
Okay.
Think school services and accommodations, extra time on tests, preferential seating, the works.
Right.
These can be game changers for a child struggling to keep up in a traditional classroom.
It's like finally getting the right tools for the job. What else does it help with?
Second, it opens the door to medication, if you choose to go that route. And I know that's a big decision for families. But third, and this might be the most important, diagnosis shifts the whole conversation.
Okay.
It moves away from blame and frustration toward understanding and support. It's not, why are you doing this? It's, how can we work with this?
So true. It's such a more positive approach. Speaking of approaches, the book doesn't limit itself to just medication, right?
Absolutely not. It dives into alternative therapies. And this is where it gets really interesting, at least for me, because there are so many options today.
Let's unpack those a bit. What are some of the standout alternative therapies they discuss?
Neurofeedback, for one.
Okay.
It's basically training the brain to self-regulate using real-time feedback, kind of like a biofeedback video game.
Okay, so I'm picturing something like those brain training apps, but with more science behind it.
Exactly. The book talks about a boy named Timmy who did neurofeedback.
Good.
He saw improvements in his focus, especially in the mornings, which is huge for kids who struggle to get going.
Right.
Although the book does mention that Timmy's home behavior didn't change much, and the effects weren't consistent throughout the day.
So it's not a magic bullet, but it sounds promising. What else?
Another one is working memory training.
Okay.
They specifically talk about CogMed, a computer-based program you can do at home. Think of it like a brain gym for working memory, the mental muscle we use to hold and juggle information.
Which is essential for everything from following instructions to, well, learning in general.
Exactly. And then there's counseling.
Okay.
I know it can feel like a big step, but the book makes a strong case for cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, for both boys and parents.
That's interesting. They recommend it for parents, too. What's the reasoning there?
It equips parents with tools to manage their own stress and respond more effectively to their son's behavior.
Okay.
Imagine having a toolkit for staying calm during those meltdowns instead of, losing it yourself.
Right.
For boys, CBT helps identify and change negative thought patterns and builds those crucial problem-solving skills they need.
So it's about giving both sides the skills to navigate this together.
Exactly.
I like that. What about parent training? I feel like that gets talked about a lot.
Parent training, especially one that focuses on consistency and structure, can be a game changer for families dealing with ADHD. The book really stresses this. Establish clear rules and consequences. They even suggest writing down your top 5 house rules, like not just thinking about them, but actually writing them down.
Having that visual reminder can make a big difference, not just for the kids, but for us parents, too, to stay consistent.
Absolutely.
Now, ADHD shows up differently at different ages, right?
Yeah.
So how does the book tackle that?
The book does a great job breaking down strategies for different stages.
Okay.
Starting with preschool, I think that's so important because early intervention can make a world of difference.
Let's talk about those little ones. What are some of the key things parents of preschoolers with ADHD should be looking out for?
Preschool is such a crucial time for development in general.
Yeah.
But for kids with ADHD, it can be especially challenging. The book shares a story about a little guy named Ian, 4 years old, constantly in motion, struggling to focus, and getting into unsafe situations because of his impulsivity. It's a powerful reminder that ADHD affects their whole world, not just when they're trying to sit still for circle time.
It makes it's not just about academics at that age. It's about learning to navigate the world safely. And for them, it's like the world's moving at a different speed. So what can parents do to support their preschoolers with ADHD?
Structure and consistency are absolutely essential at this age.
Okay.
It's like giving them a framework to understand and manage their big feelings and impulsive actions. We're talking predictable routines, visual schedules,
Right.
and clear boundaries. The book also emphasizes positive reinforcement, catching them being good and praising their efforts, even small ones.
That reminds me of something else I wanted to ask about. The book suggests reading specific types of books with preschoolers, right?
Yes. They recommend books about self-esteem,
Okay.
like No, David, and Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day.
I love those books.
Yeah, these stories can open up conversations about feelings and behaviors
Okay.
in a way that's relatable for young kids.
It's like sneaking in those life lessons with some fun illustrations. I love that. Okay, so we've navigated the preschool years. What about when those little guys hit elementary school? The academic pressure starts to ramp up, and I imagine that can be a whole new challenge for kids with ADHD.
You're right. Elementary school brings a whole new set of demands.
Right.
And for kids who struggle with attention and impulsivity, it can be a recipe for frustration, both for them and for parents.
The book actually addresses the dreaded homework battles head on.
Right? Yes.
Because that's something I think every parent struggles with at some point.
Oh, absolutely. The book acknowledges that homework can be a major source of tension in families with ADHD, and they offer some really practical tips.
Yeah.
One thing they emphasize is the importance of a dedicated homework space.
Okay.
And we're not talking about a fancy home office here.
Right.
It can be as simple as a desk in the corner of the living room, but it needs to be well lit, organized, and free from distractions.
So like their own little study sanctuary.
Yeah.
Where they can focus on one thing at a time.
Exactly. The book also suggests setting clear expectations and routines around homework time, whether it's right after school, after a snack break, or after dinner. Finding a consistent routine can make a big difference. And here's a tip I love. Use a visual timer.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds simple, but it can be a game changer for kids who struggle with time management.
Right.
Set the timer for, say, 20 minutes of focused work, then give them a 5-minute break.
It breaks down those overwhelming tasks into manageable chunks, which is so key for these kids. Now, what about working with the school? Because that partnership feels so crucial, especially when a child needs extra support.
You're right. Open communication with teachers is essential. The book encourages parents to request specific accommodations, like preferential seating,
Okay.
maybe closer to the teacher or away from distractions, frequent breaks to move around and refocus, and even the use of technology for written work, like laptops or tablets.
Because sometimes that act of physically writing can be a huge barrier for kids with ADHD.
Exactly. And sometimes, even with the best support in place, parents might face the difficult decision of whether to hold their child back a grade.
Right.
It's a complex issue, and the book doesn't shy away from that.
The story of Jason really stuck with me. He was on the verge of being held back, but ended up thriving when he received the right combination of learning disability services, behavioral therapy, and a more understanding approach from his parents. It shows how important it is to consider all the factors and find the best solution for that individual child. What about when the school support isn't enough? What are parents' options then?
That's where those legal frameworks come in, 504 plans and IDA. I know it can feel intimidating, but they're there to ensure that students with disabilities receive a free and appropriate public education. I won't go into all the legal details here.
Right.
But the book does a great job of explaining the difference between a 504 plan and an individualized education program, or IEP, in plain English.
It's like having that guide to help you navigate the system and advocate for your child's needs effectively.
Right. And the book doesn't stop there. It also explores alternatives to traditional public schools.
Okay.
Homeschooling, virtual schools, even specialized day or boarding schools.
Wow.
It emphasizes that the best choice really depends on the child and family's circumstances. There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
I love that they include those alternative paths because it shows that there are options,
Yeah.
even when it feels like you're hitting a wall.
And sometimes the best learning happens outside of a traditional classroom.
Right.
They share an inspiring story about a college professor with ADHD who discovered that he learned best while climbing trees as a kid. It highlights the importance of finding what works for each individual,
Right.
even if it's unconventional.
That's a great segue to the next stage, because I imagine those teenage years bring a whole new level of complexity.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking social pressures, academic demands, navigating those first jobs,
Right.
even learning to drive.
Yeah.
It's a lot for any teenager.
Yeah.
But for a boy with ADHD, it can feel like navigating a minefield.
Yeah.
And that's where we'll pick up in our next segment.
We're back with the final part of our deep dive into raising boys with ADHD, guided by the insights from Raising Boys with ADHD.
Yeah.
We've talked about understanding the diagnosis, exploring treatment options, and navigating those roller coaster school years. Now let's shift our focus to the long game, setting these young men up for success,
Right.
not just in school, but in life.
And that's where the book's dynamic action plan comes in.
Okay.
It's not about a rigid, one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
Instead, it encourages parents to create a flexible plan that evolves alongside their son.
I'm really drawn to the word dynamic here, because let's face it, life with ADHD rarely follows a straight line.
Exactly. The book suggests you start by picturing your son 5 years from now.
Okay.
What are your hopes for him? What skills do you want to see him develop? It's about getting that clear vision of the future and then working backward to figure out the steps to get there.
I love that they provide a template to walk parents through this process, covering everything from academics and behavior to social skills and emotional well-being. They even encourage you to consider your son's hobbies and interests.
It's refreshing, isn't it? It reminds us that success isn't just about grades or achievements. It's about raising a well-rounded individual who feels confident and capable in all aspects of his life.
And speaking of confidence, the book emphasizes focusing on your son's strengths, not just the areas where he struggles. Why is that so important, especially for kids with ADHD?
Think about it. Kids with ADHD are often bombarded with negative feedback, whether it's at school, at home, or even from themselves. It can be really deflating. By focusing on their strength, those things they're naturally good at and enjoy doing, we can help build their self-esteem and give them a sense of accomplishment.
It's like shining a light on those positive qualities that might otherwise get lost in the shuffle.
Exactly. The book even suggests writing down your son's strengths and sharing them with him, his teachers, coaches, anyone who plays a significant role in his life. It's a simple but powerful way to shift the focus and celebrate their unique abilities.
That's such a great reminder. Now, the book also talks about building a support system. Because, let's be honest, parents can't do this alone.
Absolutely not.
Right.
It takes a village, as they say. The book encourages parents to identify individuals and professionals who can offer guidance and support.
Okay.
Teachers, therapists, coaches, mentors, even friends and family members.
It's about creating that team of people who believe in your son and are invested in his success.
And it's about empowering your son to seek out support when he needs it.
Right.
Teaching him to advocate for himself is one of the greatest gifts we can give.
So it's not just about creating a plan. It's about fostering a culture of support and empowerment.
Precisely. Now, the book acknowledges that having a dynamic action plan is just the first step. The real work lies in putting it into practice.
Which can feel daunting, for sure.
Yeah.
So what are some tips for actually implementing this plan and making it a part of daily life?
They emphasize breaking down those big, overwhelming goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
Right.
Instead of saying, okay, you need to get your grades up, focus on one subject at a time, or even one assignment. And be realistic about your expectations. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
And celebrate those small victories along the way. Even something as simple as completing a homework assignment without a meltdown is a win worth acknowledging.
Absolutely. And remember that shift in perspective we talked about earlier, moving away from, why did you do that?
Right.
To, what can we do differently next time?
That's such a powerful reminder. It's about focusing on solutions and fostering a sense of collaboration.
Exactly.
Rather than getting stuck in a cycle of blame and shame.
It's about approaching challenges as opportunities for growth and learning, both for your son and for you as a parent.
As we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways you hope our listeners will walk away with?
Above all, remember that ADHD is a neurological difference,
Right.
not a character flaw. It's not about laziness or lack of willpower. It's about how their brains are wired.
And diagnosis is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Not to label, but to understand, access support, and open the door to treatment options.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
Be open to exploring different treatments, find what works best for your son, and remember that his needs may change over time.
Build that support system.
Yes.
You don't have to do this alone. Reach out to teachers, therapists, coaches, mentors, anyone who can offer guidance and encouragement.
Focus on your son's strengths,
Right.
not just his weaknesses. Help him to see his own potential and remind him of all the amazing things he's capable of accomplishing.
And finally, create that dynamic action plan,
Yes.
a flexible and adaptable roadmap for his success.
It's a journey, not a race. Be patient, be consistent, and never underestimate the power of love and support.
You've given our listeners so much to think about today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing your expertise with us.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge, insights, and tools to navigate the adventure of raising a boy with ADHD. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep believing in the power of knowledge to transform lives.